Jacob, are you pondering what I'm pondering?
I think so, Drew. But wouldn't more already disappear out of the holodeck?
I think the only thing holographic is your brain. No, you fool, we're going to review an animated movie on this here podcast.
Brilliant! No, wait. Why would anybody want to listen to two geeks like us?
Because, you fool, these people are so very easily entertained.
Okay, Drew. Narf!
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Cellcast. Joining me today is a man who likes to hide behind that camouflage, Jacob.
I don't know what you're talking about. Why?
Stand very, very still. Maybe we won't see him. Nah, it didn't work. Sorry, Drax.
Why, thank you. And I'd like to introduce our co-host, a man who just can't get out of his shell. Welcome, Drew.
Well, some days, I don't know. I had a joke. It's gone. It's like I'm a ghost. I don't know what's going on.
And let me introduce our co-host for this week, a man who just had to go run to Section 9. Welcome, Brian Raif.
Hey, everybody. Glad to be here. Wow. Kind of high praise, man. I'll take Section 9. That's yeah, no, I'd be Section 9. I'll stick with it. They cover your maintenance fees.
That is true.
There is at least that.
Very true. All right, Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys for having me. It's a blast. I've been listening for about a month and a half now. I'm kind of really stoked. So I was glad you guys invited me on, and I'm really excited about y'all's pick for today. I'm glad you thought of me.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure thing. My name's Brian Raif. For those of you on here who haven't met me yet, or for those of you listening who haven't met me yet, I'm a writer / artist / maker who pretends to be an IT guy for 40 hours a week right now, but we're working on getting through that. Yeah, I guess shameless self-plug. William Codex novel. Second book to be announced, but we're far enough along in the process that it is finally coming.
Yay!
Awesome.
And having read most of the first one, like the first original edit.
Wow, yes.
Like, it's really good. It's a really good book. So go check it out. It's really good. You can find it on Amazon.
You can find it on Amazon. Social media, if you look for Brian Raif just about anywhere, it's me. It's a fairly rare name. So
if I remember correctly, you have a YouTube channel that you will occasionally work on.
It's actually, that one's been kind of a mothballed project, I hate to say.
Yeah.
But I'm working on a replacement, so
okay.
Nothing on that yet. But
okay.
Keep an eye out on the social media channels, Facebook / Brian Raif, Twitter @ Brian Raif. BrianRaif.com, but the website looks horrible right now. But something YouTube related is coming, so keep an eye out for it. It'll be pretty fun.
Excellent.
I did do some tabletop RPG based YouTube stuff, but it was a little bit too confining of a space. We're going to do something a little bit more footloose and fancy free. Get to play with all the various artistic sides of the, I guess you could say, the crazy brain that writes stories about FBI agents who hunt and fight in the name of monsters. But
all right, so speaking of D&D, because I know you have a very long history with D&D and being a dungeon master and all of that. In fact, that we're cousins. We've known each other all of our lives. And so be like, do you do, if I remember correctly, you're kind of metal in the same thing we do as a podcast. Am I right?
Yeah. I'm actually currently on hiatus. I had some medical work. You guys are actually the first ones hearing my voice post-op, I suppose. But I actually play the role of Russell Clark. Oh, wow. That's my first time trying to do that voice. The role of Russell Clark on the Dustrous podcast. He's a cowboy who was sent back to a fantasy world with a ancient Native American and a kid from some town named Detroit. Sounds like a bunch of pansy Yankees hang out there, but the kid's turning out okay, I suppose. But and it's a ton of fun. I love those guys over there. They do a great show, and I really can't wait to get back. So
Awesome.
Very cool.
gotta work on that voice before I ever do, though. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Jacob, what have you been watching?
All right. So what have I been watching? I watched we had the very interesting point of watching a certain particular show on Crunchyroll.
Well, it was on Funimation.
Funimation. Whichever.
Well, there is a difference.
There is a very vast difference. I agree with you. That show would be called... Help me out, brother.
You don't remember the name of the show?
No, it'd just be like, I remember it, but for some reason I go blank.
Well, admittedly, it's a long name.
It is.
It's That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime.
Thank you.
Yes, I've only seen a few episodes, but it's amazing.
I have finished the season long time ago, and we got together for a Bible study, and afterwards they said, "Well, what's a good comedy anime?" And I said, "Well, I think the one of the few, either got Konosuba or How That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime," and that got people's attention.
Oh
yes.
Oh my gosh, I loved it. It was so much fun.
I've a
great show.
Such an OP little piece of slime.
And yet it works.
It does work.
Most of those isekais don't work for me because there's no drama, really. But this works. So,
But other than that, be like, I really haven't watched anything. What about you?
Not really much of anything either. I've outside of more Let's Plays on YouTube, but that's not that interesting.
Okay.
And of course, those of you who are, by the time you listen to this, we got a shout out on a YouTube channel called The Raw Quiz Show, which I talked about last week. And so they hopefully are sending some people this direction so they can listen to us yammer on about cartoons and such. So if y'all are hearing this for the first time, welcome.
All right, awesome. So, Brian, this is kind of a tradition we've started doing here on the podcast.
I forgot about this.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't prep you for this, but this is how this goes.
That's 9/10 of the point.
All right. So, I'm going to throw you a little quick fire questions, kind of get your thoughts on things. All right. So, what was your favorite cartoon growing up as a child?
Favorite cartoon? Voltron. I know where you were thinking, Jacob. Thundercats is a very close second place, but Voltron hands.
I was thinking Voltron.
Okay, rock on.
So, for a bit of fun, and I apologize for the audio listeners, I've got something interesting you might enjoy here, Brian, that's Voltron related.
It's so pretty.
Oh, God.
That might have been one of the funnest Lego things I've ever put together.
Yeah, that was so
That's
cool.
really
Be like,
cool.
Like I would come over like periodically. He'd be building it, and it didn't even dawn on me. Like, wait, Brian's a huge Voltron fan.
Oh yes, I'm actually one of my various artistic side projects right now. I'm working on getting into 3D sculpting and printing. Yeah, you're kind of back there in that corner. You can see some workshop stuff. But one of my major 3D sculpts I'm going to be using to kind of like really stretch my legs, I've decided, is I'm going to try to do a Voltron.
Nice.
Rock on, dude.
What's really cool though about that particular Lego set, it actually combines like it does in the show.
Oh, that's
it is
so
transforming.
Cool. Oh.
I wish you the best of luck in finding one now that I've thrown a craving on you. Because I barely found that one.
And he's looking.
Of course he is.
Oh my, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I'm not. I am not looking. I'm not.
$850,000.
And
I can squeeze it.
I didn't pay that much. I got extremely lucky at Barnes & Noble.
Nice.
They had one on clearance.
Oh.
And it was in the back room, so they forgot about it. And I just happened to be on their website. It's like, y'all still have this? Surely not. So I just buy it just to see if they're going to send me a letter that says, "Oh, we're sorry, we don't have this one anymore." And I'll go, "Oh well." And also says, "Nope, it'll be available for pickup at such and such time. Since the COVID crisis is coming on, you might want to wait in your car, and we'll bring it out to you."
Okay.
It's like, okay.
You're like sitting in the car with the ski mask on, and they bring it out to you, and like, "Sir, are you okay?" Yeah. Totally social distancing. Not getting this for a steal at all.
Exactly. That's the entire reason I'm here.
All right, very cool. So, what was one of your favorite animated movies growing up?
Favorite animated movies growing up? I'm going to say two that really stick in my head from way back. The original Land Before Times, probably the first cinema experience I remember, and Rescuers Down Under.
Yes.
Oh, good choice.
Very good choice.
I mean, there's some old animes that I don't even think I can find. I've looked for. There's one called Goldwing. But I've never even been able to find it. So.
Oh, wow. Cool. All right. So, another question would be, do you prefer...
Give him a second. He'll remember what he's asking in a minute.
I had it. It just went blank.
Me and Jacob both speak squirrel. It's fine. I got it.
Yes.
Fine.
He's totally used to it.
That's how I learned about the little marker system in Audacity, actually.
Oh, gosh. All right. So, traditional animation or anime?
That's
So
a tough
Western
one.
or Japanese?
Yeah.
It really depends. Like I've seen. I mean, I think
purposes of discussion, Avatar. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was saying for purposes of discussion, Avatar would technically be considered anime for this discussion.
True. And that also includes CG and modern
The
stuff.
whole shebang.
I mean, really, it's like that's almost like asking, do you like photography or do you like oil painting? There are really good examples of both.
Right.
I think.
But there are people who have a preference.
Yeah,
that's why we ask.
They're adult Brian. If I have to make a pick, I'm going to go with anime because there are more stories designed for an older audience. You don't often see traditional animation tackling something like Tonight's Show. But it's well tonight's I don't know if y'all guys tell what you're going into before you actually say it or not, but
it'll be on the name of the episode. So
right. Yeah, the show the anime we're talking about tonight, an incredibly mind-boggling philosophical topic that almost is limitless in depth, but you just don't see that in, like, you get Avatar, which is a fine example of animation and a great story, but you don't see. Well, you just said that qualified as anime, not traditional animation. Sorry.
I'm only saying that because it's obvious that's the style it's using.
Yeah.
I'm using the style definition, not the location of make definition.
All right.
But yeah, I've got to go anime just because better stories on average due to historical trend.
All right.
Makes sense.
So, following that, what is your favorite anime? Tick-tock.
I mean, if you ask me right out, I mean, we're talking about Ghost in the Shell. That's kind of a hard
be what
bar
we're
to
talking
beat.
about.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm probably mostly for nostalgia. I'll be honest. Going back and rewatching it, not one of the finest examples of anime or even of all these incredibly in-depth philosophical stories I was talking about. But I've got to go with Record of Lodoss War, probably.
Ooh.
That's a good choice,
That is a good
actually.
show.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that when I watched it.
I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I still do, but like I go back and rewatch it, and I'm like, oh, they're using the same animation, or wow, this story really is just a little flat. Still well done, and Deedlit is best girl, but that's beside the point.
Yeah.
Deedlit is always best girl.
Amen to that. All right. So, we touched on this. All right. Traditional hand-drawn animation or computer generated?
Ooh,
That's a tough one.
Let me make a verification question on this.
Okay.
By by computer generated, you're referring to 3D, not 2D? Because technically most modern 2D is technically computer generated due to vector graphics and such.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So essentially 3D or 2D?
Yeah. 3D or 2D. That's 2D hands down.
All right.
I think there's a lot of growth in the field of 3D animation. I think we still bump into the uncanny valley a little hard in a lot of cases. But that's really just personal preference. You can find great stories in either. But they're just, once again, because of history, and there's this much history with 2D animation and this much history with 3D animation.
Yeah.
There's a lot more good stories out there in 2D right now.
Alrighty.
All right, good deal. All right, I got 2 more for you.
Okay.
How many of these you get?
Yeah, just 2 more. All right.
This is, by the way, if y'all haven't figured it out, there's no news tonight.
No, there is no news. All right. Here's a hard one. Disney or Pixar?
Disney.
Okay.
All right, excellent.
Is that due to the history or mostly, or do you just really do prefer their storytelling to Pixar's? Or their
Mostly the history. Like, and I mean, this is as a 30-something who grew up in the United States, I guess, there's a lot more nostalgia and emotional attachment tied to Disney properties, while Pixar definitely tells a lot of really good stories. I don't think Toy Story would ever have the same impact for me as like The Lion King, because for one, I was in the prime target demographic, and for the other one, I was the older crowd who was getting all the undercover jokes.
I think I just realized I'm probably the youngest person in this conversation.
You are.
I'm older than Jacob, so technically, So technically, we've known each other for all of Jacob's life. Who knows what I got up to this for his first 60 days or so?
Right.
Could have been nuts.
Yeah.
Because I was
knowing you, yes,
I was in the prime demographic for both of those movies.
All right. So, what is your guilty pleasure anime that you go to, just like you want to chill and relax, or just what have you? It can't be Record Lotus War.
No, actually, it wouldn't be. That one gets a bit crunchy, as far as like relaxing goes.
Well, the animation can get crunchy in that one too.
There was one. I'm going to put it. There are 2 answers to this one. There was the previous one, and there was the anime that recently dethroned it.
Ooh.
Now there was one. It's a horribly a little bit too ecchi to recommend for just anybody, but the story was fairly solid, and the characters were really, really unique, and you really cared about them. And it was one called High School of the Dead.
Oh, okay.
I did watch some of that.
And I enjoyed it. It gets a little bit too... it rides that line between PG-13 and rated R a little bit hard for any audience. But you really did care about the characters, and it was one of those things that I could turn on in the background and just let run. And it was a bunch of kids running around killing zombies. However, definitively and recently dethroned it as far as like go-to guilty pleasure anime. And it's anime by technicality on this show, but I'll take it. And recently, with everything going on in the world and all that, I was trying to keep abreast of things. I just couldn't anymore till about 3 weeks ago. And I just turned on Avatar: The Last Airbender on Netflix and just began binging hard.
That's one of those shows I really do need to go through. I've seen a couple episodes here and there, and I know the story is surprisingly extensive for a Nickelodeon cartoon.
Yeah.
But I haven't had the time.
Yeah. It's got a lot more depth. I love all the little hints and things you can spot in it, like the martial arts for the different bending nations and all that, or all the different bending styles are based around real world martial arts. And just all the little peeks at culture, and it's the way they built a world. And that's something I geek out really hard about as a writer. They built this incredibly beautiful, vibrant, almost on the edge of bubblegum, cotton candy world. But if you let your guard down for a second, well, to quote the show, and then the Fire Nation attacks. And things get really serious and surprisingly adult. And I think they do a really good job of approaching a lot of sensitive issues in a way that a younger audience can safely digest. And it doesn't outright tell them, this idea bad, this idea good. Mm-hmm. A lot of it is left up for the viewer to decide, even with their age. They do a really good job when they step into that with Korra, the sequel series, which I'm trying not to watch right now because I want to go through and read all the in-between comics. And they're actually releasing some kind of omnibus for them. Actually today. I think I need to hop on and get that ordered. Because I want to read all the post-Airbender before Korra comics before I dive in and start binging my way through Korra.
Wow. You are deep diving in this.
Yeah, I kind of... You know me, Jacob. Once I get something to geek out about, I geek out pretty hard.
You do. All right, so final question. This is the hardest one. This is going to be like the most challenging question ever.
Yeah, the numbers don't add up.
No, they don't.
Okay.
It's like listening to Phil and Hercules say, I've got 2 words for you. Stop, drop, and roll, or whatever he says.
Either way. All right. So what have you been watching besides Ghost in the Shell recently? Okay.
Well, like I just mentioned, the Avatar thing. Beyond that, really, I signed up for way more of a watching thing. Now, for a lot of people, probably a lot of the audience here, watching, I signed up to do this 100 movies that I've never seen before inside of a year thing. I think all 3 of us are in that Facebook group.
We're in that. In fact, I got to add one this week.
Yeah, that's a prodigious effort for me. Like, I'm not... anytime I sit down to just turn on and watch media, the back of my brain starts going, you could be writing right now. Your beta reader's waiting for chapters for book 3, and you need to do your final read through for book 2, which thankfully is done now, but you could be working on this project, or you could be working on this project, and that doesn't fit the spirit of that challenge. I have to sit down and watch the movie.
Right.
And I don't sit down very easily. But
admittedly, when I started that, I assumed, I've got this challenge in the bag because I've got 2 podcasts that require me to watch a movie every week, and there's probably a good chance one of those every week is going to be a movie I've not seen. And plus, look at all these new movies coming out this year. I'm not going to have any trouble with this. I'm probably going to finish around October. And then, as you said, the Fire Nation attacked. In the form of COVID-19. And that's why I'm not even at 50 yet here on halfway through the year.
Hey, you're ahead of me, okay?
I'm at 59, with the most recent being Hotel Artemis, which I was really impressed with. I like that one.
Yeah.
Hotel Artemis, Alien Covenant, which I wasn't too happy with, and Priest, which was honestly and there's a mutual friend who has a good chance of maybe hearing this one when I say it, and I apologize in advance, kiddo. But Priest was recommended to me by a friend of mine, and people like to recommend supernatural horror type movies to me.
Yeah.
Because that's the genre I write in. They know I dig that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm really, really picky about those kind of films, though. And Priest just didn't really stack up. Like, it had some unique ideas, but in the end, it's like, okay, it's a sci-fi western vampire movie, and I'm a Firefly fan and all, but that's just like you're blending one too many genres in there, maybe, because their vampires were kind of and the characters were a little weak. Still, all in all, not a huge fan of that one, but Hotel Artemis on the 2D 3D animation debate, Detective Pikachu, however, I did watch, and that was thoroughly enjoyable.
I enjoyed that. That was fun.
I still need to watch that movie. Mm-hmm. It'd be like we'll probably
I will
review.
Let you borrow it.
All right, and we'll probably review it at some point.
Probably.
And I'd already seen Unbroken, but I watched Unbroken, Split, and Glass finally here a few weeks ago.
Oh, Unbreakable.
Yeah, Unbreakable. That's it, not Unbroken.
Okay.
Yeah, Unbreakable. Then I got the tag Split and Glass onto the list. So
I still haven't seen Glass.
it's a good watch. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and some of the it's like a Shyamalan film. Every single time he records a movie, and it's because of that, I like that twist at the end thing. It just opens the world wide up. So now he's done his trilogy, he's told his story, and I'm like, no, we're not finished with this world because you made me ask all these questions.
All right, good deal.
So, I think we are ready to move into the spoiler-free section of our review for this movie.
Yes.
And since you're our guest, Brian, and surely people have not gotten tired of listening to you talk yet, why don't you go first?
Awesome. Ghost in the Shell. So we're just going into
spoiler-free.
Spoiler-free?
General thoughts, basically whatever you want to talk about that gives you general idea of the movie.
Okay, so spoiler-free review. I mean, Ghost in the Shell's probably one of those animes that you can just dive into, and there'll be talk about that in a little bit, I'm sure. Diving has a lot to tell about this movie. You can dive into this film, and it just goes deeper and deeper. And it's every time you watch it, and especially it originally came out in 1994, so I was 12 years old when the original aired. Truth be told, I was probably 14 or 15 by the first time I got to see it. Because I don't think it was dubbed until 95 or 96.
Yeah,
and
my release said 95.
Okay.
But then another thing I saw said 96, so...
Okay.
I'm guessing one's the Japanese version, one's the English version.
Yeah. Well, certainly the information I have, it was dubbed in November 8th, 1995.
Okay. So even then, I was probably 14 or 15 years old when I first saw Ghost in the Shell. And even, it was deep then, and it was almost too much to swallow probably for a 15-year-old. And it was talking about topics that, frankly, in my past, I'd never heard of before. And it really kind of opened your mind to, answering boggling questions like, what is life? At what point is something not alive? And then you turn around and you watch it 5 years down the road, and you've got, at that point, I was a fine arts major, probably trying to decide whether or not I wanted to stick with an art and humanities degree. And, I understood, I tackled some of those questions already, and I dove a little bit deeper. And you watch it another 5 years later, and you've got a little bit deeper you can go. And sadly, I've got a couple more iterations of 5 years later beyond that even. And every time I turn around and watch this movie, it just gets deeper and more beautiful. I mean, the animation is timeless. Once again, watched it for the first time probably 1996, 1997, and it was groundbreaking at the time, especially the brief little CGI scene. But even the hand-drawn scenes are still just phenomenal. I turned around and watched it this week, 20 some odd years later, and it's still an incredible example of animation that holds up over time. But even so, those questions, they still get deeper and deeper, and you find yourself, it's one of those films that doesn't. I like stories and films that they ask you a question, but they don't necessarily tell you an answer. And I think that's what's always resonated with me with Ghost in the Shell, is it asks you these questions, but it never tells you if you're right, if you're wrong, if it's A or B, or true or false.
Alrighty. Well, this was my first viewing of this movie. For whatever reason, I had missed any other opportunity. I think, actually, I had seen part of the 2.0 version, which is like a remaster of it.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, I didn't finish that viewing way back when. But I watched this one and actually thoroughly enjoyed it. I've got a couple minor. I got a nitpick for that when we get to that point. But yeah, I actually watched it on Amazon. Normally, and for those of you who do not mind Japanese subtitles, and I would probably suggest this for most people. On YouTube right now, you can watch the Japanese subtitled version for free with commercials. If you're fine with subtitles, I'm going to make this just that. We had already agreed to do the English version, so that's why I stuck there. But this is not my first deep thing, because I grew up watching Star Trek: The Next Generation as a kid, which most of that went over my head too, and a lot of this kind of resonated with the episode, at least for me, with the episode "The Measure of a Man," which dealt with whether or not Data was actually a life form or not, and had the rights and everything that they considered civilized beings to have, and ultimately at the end they don't really answer the question, not conclusively, other than they don't really know what the answer is, but they ruled he had the right to choose where he was going. Anyway, that's besides the point. It reminded me of that episode a lot, except with a lot more action and a lot more revealing clothing.
Yeah.
But in the 3D, I thought was done very well in this movie. If you're looking for a good cerebral sci-fi anime, and you kind of like stuff like Blade Runner, I actually would highly suggest watching this movie. So what do you think, Jacob?
Oh, where do I start with this film? All right, so my background with this movie actually links with our host, Brian, because when we were like 15, 14 years old, when this movie came out, he got finally able to watch it. He couldn't stop raving about it. Just couldn't stop raving about it. He was like, Ghost in the Shell this, Ghost in the Shell this. I was like, what in the world is this Ghost in the Shell business you're talking about? And so eventually, I can't remember if we watched it at your house or something like that. I remember watching it at your place, I think.
Probably at my place. I imagine, because, well, frankly, I don't think we could have got away with watching Ghost in the Shell at your place.
No, absolutely not. My parents, no. But yeah, it's a very mind-blowing movie, and be like, there's parts of it still I'm still wrestling with trying to understand it, because like you said, it's such a deep dive of a film.
Literally.
Yeah, quite literally a deep dive. And being a 15-year-old boy, you're watching this film, it's like, ooh, okay. The visuals are very pretty.
Yeah.
Keeping this family friendly.
Right.
But
the graphics were beautiful.
The graphics are beautiful. So elegantly gorgeous.
Yes.
We'll say on a brief aside, it is, I mean, their work they do with anatomy and like that intro, well, that might be spoilery territory to talk about the intro, but
it was in the Scarlett Johansson movie, so maybe not too spoilery.
Yeah.
Okay, the intro where they go into how that's going to be spoilery. I'm going to hold off. I'm sorry, Jacob.
Okay,
go ahead.
that's fine.
No,
fine.
You're good, man. You're good. Yeah, I've watched this movie a handful of times. I enjoy it. There's a lot of it more where it's like, okay, maybe I'm not picking up this point or this point, but it's still an incredibly well done movie where it talks about life and what life means and the existence of life and what it means to be a living organism or a living being. And it's a fascinating movie, and I would highly recommend it for more of an adult audience.
Yes,
because
this is definitely not a movie for kids.
No,
yeah,
it's not.
No, definitely grown-ups only. Despite the fact that we got our hands on it a bit younger.
Yeah,
right.
But that's kind of what I loved about it.
If you're looking for something for kids, this is not it.
No. Yeah, go ahead.
As I always loved about it is, even though you definitely slap an age warning on it or whatnot, but even if you're there for a sci-fi action romp, Ghost in the Shell's got your back. I mean, it might get a little draggy at some points, but even if you're willing to tackle some of these deeper questions it goes on, or even if you're just deep enough to know that Bato is pretty much Descartes facing the modern era of philosophy, tackling questions that he wasn't prepared to answer, you can really, it kind of, no matter where you sit on that, on how willing you are to tackle some of the deeper issues, it's still a really good movie.
Mm-hmm. I will say, as we were talking, I realized this was not my first my first exposure to this particular franchise, because I did see Standalone Complex or parts of it back in the day.
Yeah.
And I did see the live-action Scarlett Johansson movie a couple years ago when it came out, and I'm in the camp that I thought it was actually okay.
I am too, even as a loyalist to the original.
Yeah,
I think
it's its own story. It's not like it's supplanting this.
Mm-hmm. It's watered down a bit, I think, but it's like the modern remake trend. It spoon feeds you the ideas, and whether or not ScarJo was the best fit for the Major or not, it's a whole different debate that I'm not currently decided on, so I'm not starting.
We won't get get into that since we're not actually talking about that movie, but
yeah. But it takes a lot of the same ideas, though, and it spoon feeds you. And as someone who had already seen the movie and had kind of had that philosophy of Ghost in the Shell in the back of his brain for a little bit over 20 years, by the time the live-action remake came out, I wasn't terribly happy with that, but I can still see it from a first-timer introduction point of view, being like, oh, okay, this is...
I mean, it's not even really a remake. It seems like it's an adaptation of a different story within this universe. That's just my thoughts on it.
All right, so I had a question pop up because I had posted on all of our social media platforms of what are your thoughts on Ghost in the Shell 1995, not the live action movie. And one of our listeners, Josh Adams, posted, which one do you think is better, the original 1995 or Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex? Now, I could not honestly give an answer because I've watched the movie, obviously, but the TV series, I only watched a handful of the episodes, so I really couldn't really give a full, definite... Be like I can say, yes, the movie's spectacular, but the TV show, I really can't, give a full opinion on.
The last time I watched the show, I was in high school, so I can't really comment on much of it either, because my memory does not reach back very well that far to my thoughts. Plus, in most cases, because I was in high school at the time, it was airing on Friday nights, I think, on Adult Swim. There were a lot of times where I did not get back from playing in the band from the football games that I actually got to see the episode, so I've never seen it all the way through. So I will have to pass on making a judgment on that one.
Yeah.
And I'm going to admit some bias when I say it, but I've got to go with the original film. But that being said, Standalone Complex, what I saw was a really fine example, but I never went back and watched, episode 1 and moving forward through everything that was currently released, I didn't watch it that style. I caught scattered episodes here and there as I was... It's not part of our thing, but when did Standalone Complex come out?
I'm not sure.
But odds are I was working, 2002. Okay, so I was in college at the time.
Yeah.
So I wasn't...
That would have been my junior year of high school when I saw it then.
That was my senior year in high school.
Yeah, that would have been maybe freshman year of college, which... probably explains why I was not sitting down in front of a TV all that often. I was already beginning my lifestyle of living in an art studio pretty much at that point.
Yeah. Ain't it great?
There are parts of it I miss. That's the reason why I've converted my second bedroom in this apartment into more or less a studio with a big computer in it. But
all right. Well, I think we've reached the end of the spoiler-free review. So if you'll join us on the other side of the spoiler warning, we'll talk about this film more in depth. The following is a spoiler-filled review for the movie Ghost in the Shell, 1995. Listener discretion is advised. Ghost in the Shell was directed by Mamoru Oshii. I probably said, I have fair warning, I'm probably going to mispronounce every single Japanese name in here, so forgive me for that. But one of the things I saw that he directed was the Skycrawlers, which I've not seen, but I do remember it being advertised a long time ago. It was written by Kazunori Ito, who also wrote the anime Dot Hack Sign, which I did not realize. It was, of course, based on the manga by Shiro Masamune. The music was done by Kenji Kawai, who also composed the music for the anime Mob Psycho 100. Cast includes Mimi Woods, who plays Major Motoko Kusanagi. In the anime El Hazard: The Alternative World, she played Shayla. Tom Weiner played the Puppet Master. And in Street Fighter II, the animated movie, he was the voice of M. Bison. Bato was voiced by Richard Epcar. He is one of the voices of Inspector Zenigata in Lupin III, and is this week's Kingdom Hearts reference.
Go figure.
In which he played Ansem, Seeker of Darkness, starting with Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories.
Ah.
Which, that's chronologically, I think technically he would have been hired first for Kingdom Hearts 2, but that's neither here nor there.
No Kingdom Hearts timeline. I'm not ready.
Well, I mean, he also voiced him in Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days. Which, I didn't even say that name right. But anyway.
I can't tell.
But pretty much he's...
I can't tell if that was a joke title or a real video game.
No, that's not the worst Kingdom Hearts title. The worst one is Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep 0.2, A Fragmentary Passage.
People say they can't decide what Knight of the Silver Sword means. Shameless.
Anyway, Togusa was voiced by Christopher Joyce. And the only thing interesting I found on him was he played a young prisoner in Trigun.
Hey. Trigun is awesome.
It is cool. Good. Chief Aramaki was voiced by William Frederick Knight, and he played the character of Gordon Rosewater in The Big O, which I watched that show. I just don't remember that character, but that was also a long time ago.
Batman the Anime before Batman the Anime.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Right around the same time.
Mm-hmm. Chief Nakamura was voiced by Simon Prescott, and in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, he played Master Vile.
Wow. Okay.
When I saw that on the list, it's like, oh, I have to put this on here. It's the first time we've run across a Power Rangers actor who actually voiced a major character. I think he was in season 3 of that series.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Big head.
Mizuho Daita was voiced by Richard Casino, and in Initial D, he played Hiromichi. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. Garbage Collector A.
Which is really an important role, guys.
Yeah, actually it is.
It is.
Was voiced by Kevin Seymour. He is also he is the voice in the original. He's the voice of Inspector Zenigata in the original English dub of Lupin III: Castle of Cagliostro. That's the one in which Lupin was actually named Wolf because they legally weren't sure if they could use the name Lupin or not because of all the stuff dealing with the LeBlanc estate dealing with the character, because technically they used the character's name without permission in the original manga.
Oh wow!
Because the idea was Lupin was the great grandson of Arsène Lupin, the master thief, who ironically once fought Sherlock Holmes without getting permission to use Sherlock Holmes. So when they decided to use that, and it started getting where they were, exporting that show to different countries, the estate decided to sue them because they technically was an illegal use of the character name.
Wow.
Yeah.
Drop some knowledge on you.
Which I think we also went into on that Castle of Cagliostro episode.
We did.
But that is the manga dub, so that makes sense. It's coming from the same studio. And Garbage Collector B was voiced by Doug Stone, who is probably most famous for voicing Psycho Mantis in Metal Gear Solid.
Oh.
The guy who reads your memory card. and vibrates your controller during the boss fights. And the only way you can beat him is to unplug the controller from port 1 and plug it into port 2.
Okay, coming from the guy who doesn't play video games that often,
It is an odd thing.
That is very
it's kind
odd.
of an awesome thing, but
Yeah,
It's such a Metal Gear Solid thing.
forget just Metal Gear Solid. That is a Hideo Kojima thing.
Yeah.
well, I can say, because kind of relating to something you said earlier about Final Fantasy or
Kingdom Hearts
related to Final Fantasy. I remember a certain group of kids playing Final Fantasy 3 or 7, whichever it was. I think it was 3.
Technically, if you said 3.
I think it was 3. Playing it for
3/6.
what was 3/6 for, I don't know, approximately 12 hours, and the TV burning up.
That was Final Fantasy 3/6, depending on how you're counting them.
Right.
But yeah, that was we literally destroyed a television playing that game for like an hour straight or something.
That takes skill.
Yes, it was fun to watch. It's like, guys, the TV's on fire. It's like, what?
All right, Jacob, hit us with that box office information.
All right, box office. Box office.
Box office.
Box
I'm
sausage.
keeping that in, by the way.
Okay, box sauces.
Yes, box sausage.
All right. All right, so to box sausage. All right, so on IMDb, it has a rating of 8 out of 10, which is really good for a movie. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has a score of 96% and an audience score of 89%. All right, so production was Production IG, Bandai Visual, and Manga Entertainment. Manga, thank you. Manga.
But I'm mostly just yanking your chain because people have that fight's been going on for years.
That is true.
Yeah.
I've always wondered if they also pronounce it Mongo.
The war must go on. All right, so distribution was by, how would you pronounce it?
Shochiku. I think that's Shochiku.
Shochiku. Okay. So Shochiku, I believe how you pronounce it. Thank you, Drew, because I'm terrible at sometimes reading. And in Japan, in a manga or manga entertainment, at least for the UK.
In the U.S., I think Stars technically owns the rights.
Right.
Of all people.
Mm-hmm.
That's because Stars bought manga. Anyway.
That's true. All right. So to release dates, it was released November 18th, 1995 in Japan, and November 8th, 1995 in the UK and United States. Because this was one of the actual first-time movies that was actually almost a simulcast of its original Japanese dub, its original language, and its dub coming out merely months later. This was one of the first attempts of this.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
Well, I did notice that Manga Entertainment is considered one of the major producers for it, so it had to have been made in tandem.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, this was one of the real first attempts to actually get anime into the Western market.
Well, if you're going to try to aim for that Academy Award, they have to be able to see it in the same year. So, anyway.
All right. So, going into box office and looking at the numbers, it's really sad due to how enormous this movie is now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, it had a budget. Check this out. This is I've never seen a budget this huge. Estimated in yen is over $600 million. That's yen.
600 million yen.
Yeah.
600 million yen. That's insane.
What is that in dollars?
I think
I
so.
don't know the conversion.
it's just a hair over $5.5 million.
$5.5 million. Okay. That's still not bad.
That's not bad.
That's not bad.
Sure,
about
remember, most yen to dollar is chop off a couple of zeros.
Okay.
Right.
Didn't know that. All right. So its opening weekend U.S. release was, wow, $236,000 on February 4th, 1996. Its U.S. gross was $5,015,909. This is shy over $500,000 U.S. domestic. Its world gross was the exact same. So,
Ouch.
yeah, this movie did terrible in theaters. Be like, they were banking on this movie becoming, Titanic of its age,
Right.
and it failed miserably.
It kind of does, though, make you wonder how it got a sequel movie, not to mention the TV shows that came after.
It's called VHS and DVD releases.
Had to have been.
Yeah,
I'm about to
'cause-
say, and I think the sequel, if memory serves, didn't come out till quite a while after. Like
It did.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the it was a cult classic by the time they made
It
the
was.
sequel. So
Yeah, because it took a couple of years when it came to VHS and DVD. Be like, it skyrocketed. It's one of those films that I can't think of the top of my head. One of those that be like, it did poorly in the box office. Be like, it had kind of a mixed reviews, but it just did terrible in the box office. But when it came
happens.
to but like Brian said, it became a cult classic when it came to VHS and DVD, and it stayed there. It's been re-released in theaters a few times here and there, and it's held its status as one of the most popular anime of all time.
it was 2004 when the second one came out. So yeah, 10 years
Okay.
between.
Yeah,
That's
Makes
a really
sense.
trippy film too, by the way. I know that's not tonight's thing, but after
Yeah.
you watch this one, if you like this movie, give yourself some time to digest, and then go watch the sequel and have all the answers you've declared to all the questions it asks completely blown out of the water.
okay then.
I'd say this is one of those movies I don't bother to try and find out what the answers are because I will be unhappy with them. Anyway, getting into the summary for this movie. In 2029, with the achievement of cybernetic technology, the human body can be augmented or even completely replaced with cybernetic parts. Another significant achievement is the cyberbrain, a mechanical casing for the human brain that allows access to the internet and other networks. An often mentioned term is ghost, referring to the consciousness inhabiting the body, the shell. Major Motoko Kusanagi is an assault team leader for the Public Security Section 9 of Newport City in Japan. Following a request from Nakamura, chief of Section 6, she successfully assassinates a diplomat of a foreign country to prevent a programmer named Daita from defecting. The foreign minister's interpreter is ghost-hacked, presumably to assassinate VIPs in an upcoming meeting, believing the perpetrator is the mysterious puppet master. Kusanagi's team follows the traced telephone calls that sent the virus. After a chase, they capture a garbage man and a thug. However, both are ghost-hacked individuals with no clue about the puppet master. The investigation again comes to a dead end. Megatech Body, a shell manufacturer with suspected close ties to the government, is hacked and assembles a cybernetic body. The body escapes but is hit by a truck. As Section 9 examines the body, they find a human ghost inside its computer brain. Unexpectedly, Section 6's department chief, Nakamura, arrives to reclaim the body. He claims that the ghost inside the brain is the puppet master himself, lured into the body by Section 6. The body reactivates itself, claims to be a sentient being, and requests political asylum. After the puppet master initiates a brief argument about what constitutes a human, a camouflaged agent accompanying Nakamura starts a diversion and gets away with the body. Having suspected foul play, Kusanagi's team is prepared and immediately pursues the agent. Meanwhile, Section 9 researches Project 2501, mentioned earlier by the puppet master, and finds a connection with Daita, whom Section 6 tries to keep from defecting the country. Facing the discovered information, Daisuke Aramaki, chief of Section 9, concludes that Section 6 created the puppet master itself for political reasons and now seeks to reclaim the body that it currently inhabits. Kusanagi follows the car, carrying the body to an abandoned building where she discovers it being protected by a large tachikoma, or tank, anxious to face the puppet master's ghost. Kusanagi engages the tank without backup, resulting in her body being mostly dismembered. Her partner Bato arrives in time to save her and helps connect her brain to the Puppet Master's. The Puppet Master explains to Kusanagi that he has created by Section 6. While wandering various networks, he became sentient and began to contemplate his existence. Deciding the essence of life is reproduction and mortality, he wants to exist within a physical brain that will eventually die. As he could not escape Section 6's network, he had to download himself into a cybernetic body. Having interacted with Kusanagi without her knowledge, he believes she is also questioning her humanity, and they have a lot in common. He possesses merging their ghosts. In return, Kusanagi would gain all of his capabilities. Kusanagi agrees to the merge. Snipers from Section 6 approach the building, intending to destroy the Puppet Master and Kusanagi's brains to cover up Project 2501. The Puppet Master's shell is destroyed, but Bato shields Kusanagi's head in time to save her brain. As Section 9 closes in on the site, the snipers retreat. Kusanagi wakes up in Bato's safe house with her previous shell's head attached to a new cyborg child body. She tells Bato that the entity within her body is neither Kusanagi nor the Puppet Master, but a combination of both. She promises Bato that they will meet again, leaves the house, and wonders where to go next. So, Brian, what are your thoughts on this movie? Or should I say, what is your first like?
Yeah, my first
Your only like.
Yeah.
And we've kind of already touched on my first like, I suppose, and that's that you can't dive too deep into this movie. And we can finally talk about it. You know, there's the scene where the Major is diving headfirst into the film. Is diving as I think it's not in the movie. I think it's in something else. I remember the number. It's like a 900 and something pound cyborg. She's diving into the water, you know, completely incapable of swimming. She'll just sink like a rock. But and it's a really good parallel for the diving scene's a really good parallel for the internal struggle the Major goes through throughout the film of this: who am I? Where do I come from? Am I alive? Am I a ghost? Whole argument she has with herself. And it's a really good view for the reader because like I said, you can't go too deep into this movie. It just keeps going and going and going. So that's my first like is the philosophy behind Ghost in the Shell. Beyond being a standout for its animation. I know that gets into my dislike a little bit, but so I'll stop there. But
all right. Jacob, what's your like?
All right. So Brian kind of hit on my first like. The animation in this film is spectacular. Well done. Something that was done in 1994, 1995. Which at that point you're already getting amazing movies and amazing television shows. But the scene I particularly point on, you touched on it just a second ago, Brian, was the Major diving. That entire scene is so well executed. How they portray gravity and how they portray oxygen and water. The fact to be like you said, this a 600, 800 pound android or cyborg. Am I right?
Cyborg,
something like that.
Yeah.
Cyborg. Thank you. Cyborg. Yeah. Thought so. But just how they use weight, how they use just everything, like how mass works and how the human body works, and the detail they go into this is just phenomenal. And the scene that pops up in particular at the very end of the dive scene where she surfaces, and it's just that expression. It's like the director said, be like she wanted the Major wanted to be more like a doll, and like how cyborgs are like dolls, and that entire going into that's even fantastic. But the animation in this film is just phenomenal. There'll be there's points where it'd be like, can I just get a high resolution shot, put it in a frame, and put it somewhere in the house? Because some of the backgrounds are incredible. Because some of these backgrounds are almost up to par, not up to par, but hold up against more modern animated movies nowadays, and just beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. So that's my number one like. What about you, Drew?
My like on this movie is the story. This story hits the ground running and really does not stop.
No.
There are times where it does take a break and lets you breathe and kind of lets you live in this world for a couple minutes. But from beginning to end, you've got this mystery going on. And admittedly, while the mystery may not be that much of a standout, since we know from the beginning the person causing all this trouble is the puppet master. Who the puppet master is and what his goals are hidden throughout most of the movie until you get to that ending point. But still, watching them investigate, going from all these different angles, trying to find this guy, and ultimately failing up until, honestly, the puppet master lets them find him. You get right down to it.
He literally is like, I can't get where I want to go unless I let you guys find me.
Exactly.
Pretty much.
But along with the story, I have to throw in the world building.
Yes.
Because, oh my goodness, you can tell a lot of world building went into this. I know a lot of it will have come from the manga, but the fact that at no point do they show you something and it feels like they just made that up. It's like, no, there's reason behind everything. There's interconnected threads throughout the entire film. And even when they do something I think is rather odd, cause I don't want to get into that because that technically will be my dislike. But even when it does something odd like that, it works. And especially, and along with that, all the symbolism throughout the movie. I especially like during that scene in the, what is that, a warehouse where they're fighting the tank, like a fishery, I think, which surprisingly has a sculpture of apparently the world, the family tree of every animal life on Earth
that
had ever
existed.
Actually, oh, it's a museum. I wasn't sure what that was. I thought it was like that makes more sense than just a fish hatchery, because that's kind of what I thought it was.
I thought it was an auditorium.
Anyway. But even with that and the fact that you see, okay, yeah, we are talking about what is the next stage of human evolution. Is it adding in this technology or is it not? Because in some ways they have embraced the technology in their evolution. I'm not a big evolutionist. I'm Christian, so and I don't. That's just not how I look at things. But excuse me, I can accept it for this movie, and it works. And I think they ask a lot of tough questions in that, and I appreciate not shying away from it.
Well,
but all of that added together is what makes my like.
Yeah, and there's all those important questions that pop up with this, even from a Christian perspective, which I share. It's, you can take the question of evolution completely out of Ghost in the Shell. And
it's like, what is a soul? What is
the soul? What is life?
Yeah.
Does a soul require a human body?
Exactly.
Does a soul require there to ever be a human body? Because
at what point is the person dead, and what you've got is just automatic movements that a brain is making?
Yeah.
Because this is background that doesn't go into in the anime, but the Major, who is literally a cyborg, as in not an android.
Although for the most part, she's just a human brain and an android. Isn't she just like a brain in an android body, essentially?
Part of her brain, technically. She was born with some kind of degenerative disease, and literally probably would not have survived outside in a real human body. And was part of an experiment, and pretty much lived in a cybernetic body for the entirety of her life. And then you have characters like the Puppet Master, who is the Puppet Master alive is a thing because we're in the spoiler-free section. The Puppet Master was never a human.
Yeah,
he's a computer program that gained sentience, and then you're tackled with that question of, is he really sentient?
Yeah.
You know, and if he is sentient, as a computer program that gained that sentience, does that sentience carry the same soul that we do as human beings?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, and if so, where does the soul come from? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, talking with this group, we all have an agreement on where that soul comes from. But from a philosophical viewpoint, you have to stop and tackle the question, especially as a Christian. You know, if an AI were to hit some magic marker, could it all of a sudden be alive? Could it achieve a soul? And if so, what happens when that program's deleted?
At what point does an artificial intelligence become an actual intelligence?
Right.
Essentially. Or like it says in that Star Trek episode, does he have a soul? Is that a soul, or is that just a program that acts surprisingly a lot like a soul?
Like there's an actor behind it.
Well, there is an actor behind it in every single one of these instances, but not in the context of the story. But anyway, so yeah, that's my like. Since we are doing, this is our three of us, and we don't want to be here all night, we are going to just do one like and one dislike each. So, Brian, what is your dislike of this movie?
It sounds hard. It's hard to say it, but I have trouble picking. One, but that's because the couple I have are so minor. So I'm going to say one, and then I'm going to get to the one I actually want to pick.
Go right ahead.
Okay.
So, while the animation is beautiful, there are a lot of scenes where the animators relied on some tricks where it's a still frame with only selected moving parts. That being said, still pretty, but moving on. As much as
it's not full animation, but
deep dive of Ghost in the Shell and the philosophy and how deep you can go and how much this world gives you, it is hard for people to watch this movie if they're not used to watching this kind of movie, because there are no training wheels, there is no parachute. They drop you into this world completely unprepared on purpose, and that can be a big turn. Well, I love it, so I have a hard time counting it as a dislike. It has, over the years, as I've introduced people to one of my favorite animes, or one of the ones I think should be your indoctrination into anime. If you're one of those people who's like, I don't want to watch that, it's a cartoon, watch Ghost in the Shell. But even then, it's hard to get people to sit all the way through it, because right off the bat, they're going, what? What's happening? Why is that happening? And it's like, you know, you have to watch it. You know, you have to read between the lines. It is so crunchy on purpose, and I love it for that quality, but it does make it hard for a lot of people to swallow.
I can understand that. And that's something you run into a lot with anime of this era, such as Akira drops you straight into it with absolutely no explanation either, which, for a little behind-the-scenes action, we were originally planning on doing that this year, but we decided to wait till the Olympics next year, so... I mean, it was fitting out so nicely.
It was.
But anyway.
Darn you, COVID!
Yeah. But this, I mean, I forgot what I was going to say. Anyway, Jacob, go to your dislike. If I think of it, I'll bring it back up.
Okay. I think with both your conversations, we've kind of, you two have bounced with what my dislike was going to be, and that would be if you blink at any moment during this movie, you are going to miss something minor or something crucial to this film when you're completely, utterly lost.
I would argue that there are very few minor things about it, actually.
Yeah. Right.
There is not a scene in the film that you cannot pay attention to unless you've watched it 1,000 times. That you can miss that scene and still get the movie. You're going to be fairly lost if you don't catch every bit of it.
Well, I don't know. To some degree, I think this actually does symbolism well, because for those of you who don't remember, my definition of symbolism is the scene still has to work even if you don't get what the symbolism is. That's good symbolism.
Agreed.
This does actually a good job of that. It's not till you get to, I think, that last couple minutes where you realize, oh, I missed something, because now this ending is kind of weird without knowing what we're actually talking about.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't really ever tell it. You like you said, you have to read between the lines, and it doesn't even give you a in-your-face clue that there's a deeper subtext going on throughout the movie if you're not expecting one to be there. And I think the only reason I expected one to be there is because I at least had some knowledge of this franchise prior to this.
Yeah. And you get a little bit of foreknowledge and you know to look for it. But otherwise, just bam.
Otherwise, you're wondering about the technology and how all that works, and all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute, why the technology works is not the important part of this. Mm-hmm. It's what that means for the person inside the technology, which in some ways the title tells you that's what it's about, but it's out of context. When you look at the title, it kind of doesn't really say much. It just sounds like a weird anime title.
Oh, and
it's a little Englishy.
Yeah, and when you really watch it, you get so much more out of the movie. You know, you get this like one of my favorite things about it, and this was really kind of become my new favorite thing about it, is you get this that's the word I'm looking for. You get this idea that the major Motoko struggles with dysmorphia of a form. Mm-hmm. You know, because technically she's never had a body. She's a collection of brain cells that are inside a life support system in a metal case inside a robotic head on top of a robotic body.
And as a result, for all her life, she's been in a synthetic body.
Yeah, you get this very strong idea as a result in this film that she has little to no care for that body whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, like there's constantly in the film, and you know, this is part of the age gate on this movie. The major will just, if it's advantageous, she'll just strip down. And there's a reason, you know, she's robotic parts that give her a cloaking device. Yeah. Very clever reason for 13-year-old Brian to see boobs in an anime. But beyond that, however, looking at it as 38-year-old Brian, 37. There's not
37.
But the major has no concept. This isn't a body to her. It's not her. This is a device she uses to interact with the world, and it's so interesting to see other characters' interaction with it. Like there's the scene where she's fighting the guy who had the cloak hoodie type thing, and she takes him down, and she's just kind of standing there naked in this like ankle deep pool of water, and like her partner comes over to her, and his immediate reaction is to throw his coat over her, and she doesn't even respond. Or the diving scene when she comes back out and she's changing out of her wetsuit into her normal clothing, he immediately turns away. Because Bato and so many other characters in the world around the major, you know, they see her as this human being that she's struggling with, and she doesn't even know how to react in that context.
Yeah.
You know. But once again, if you don't watch like 3 2-second clips in the film, you miss that entire question about the movie.
So my dislike in this film, I actually would define more as a disappointment than actually a dislike. Because I don't know if I actually don't like it. It's just I'm not happy with the ending of this movie. Because, and I understand from her perspective why she goes ahead and agrees to merge her ghost with his, even if I don't understand how that works. But at the same time, I was like, no, you shouldn't do it that way. Somehow y'all should both survive somehow. I don't know. I don't even know what the right answer to what I would prefer to that. It's just the ending was disappointing. It's like, I expected them to try it or him to force it on her and it not work. But then it's like, by the end, it's like, oh, they are now the same person and they're not either one of the same people that were. So are they they're a new being, obviously.
Yeah,
but
amalgamation of the two.
It's an amalgamation of the two, but they're still kind of the same two people inside in a way. It's one of those things where it's like, I understand what you're saying, and I understand the worldview this movie is presenting makes that okay, and that from that perspective, it's just the ending was so disappointing. It's like I wanted you to come out and like yourself more than decide to essentially throw your life away to see if living with another being as a part of another being would be better. It felt like she committed suicide in a way at the end of that movie, and I don't like that.
Yeah, and it really does. It's one of those things, and I think really it really came across as maybe a limitation of the world they had built. Is no matter, like, you had this whole time with the Puppet Master, who was a computer program who spontaneously acquired sentience for exposure to the vastness of the internet. And then you have the Major, who was, literally part of a brain inside of Shell. We went through that. But you have this infinite being who feels lost because they are part of everywhere. And yet, because of that, they are nothing. And then you have the Major, who is kind of always felt trapped inside a box, literally.
Yeah.
You know, and she wonders if this is even her. Is this really who I am? Can I, but she can't get out of it. So in the end, you have this scene, because of the way it was told in the story on the surface level, both of those shells are destroyed. So this being survives. In the end, I think really more what the writer was trying to say was that you have kind of the very, both of these characters get what they want in the end. You get the Major, and spoilers for the sequel, the Major who kind of breaks free of her shell, and then you have the Puppet Master who finally has a personalized identity. And that's those two beings exist. I think the scene where they're both shot by the snipers in the end, and only this new entity exists, is very much so kind of a representation of that final step of what defines a human is protect the offspring. This entity isn't just a randomized blending of the Major and the Puppet Master. For lack of a better phrase, it's their child. It's a child that they both gave up. They both gave up their lives in order to see move out into the world.
Right.
That makes sense.
I get it. Don't get me wrong. It's just I kind of wish we'd gotten a different answer. I guess is really what I'm disappointed at, because admittedly, I look at this and I'm quickly reminded of the end of Star Trek: The Motion Picture, which has a very similar thing between Decker and V'ger, or Ilea, if you're going to be mad. But let's face it, he did that because he wanted to be with Ilea, if we're being honest, in some way. But still, that's dealing with the same thing. It's like a combination of the two becoming this whole new entity, and we don't know what that will lead to. And of course, in Star Trek, we never find out, unless you read fan theories about it being the Borg, but I hate those.
Yeah, the Borg are older than that. But
yeah, they're a lot older than that. But at the same time, it's not a deal breaker for this movie. It doesn't even knock it down any points, because it's, like I said, it's not a dislike, really. It's just a disappointment that that's how they decided to end the movie. And don't get me wrong, it fits thematically with the rest of the movie. It's just I was kind of hoping for, I guess, a lightning at the end.
Yeah.
Like, here's we've done all this struggle and this analyzing of this problem that we've presented, and our answer is we're going to make a second one. In a sense, well, even then, we're just having there be a child, and it's somehow both, but yet it's a no being. But anyway,
I don't think the sequel is even originally intended. I think the sequel came about as demand.
I'm not saying the sequel was intended. It's just
Well, and
it's sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that style of ending is really indicative of Eastern storytelling too.
Yeah,
it's here is a problem. Here is conflict. Here is the first breath of resolution. Now we're going to cut you loose.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I do appreciate it when the movie doesn't answer all the questions. They leave some for you, the viewer, to take apart and analyze and come to your own decision based on the evidence they give. And I appreciate that in a movie. It's just, in some ways, I guess this is just, I don't know. I'm so used to modern movies at this point. And action-packed blockbusters and such. It's like, I wanted an ending, and we didn't really get an ending. We just got, this happened, and It's a newborn, and we're not going to tell you anything. We're not even going to give you a montage during the end credits to see what she does. It's just, we're done, and if we get to make a sequel in 7-8 years, we'll explore this a little more.
Well, can I say this? The fact that you have the Major gets a new body. Mm-hmm. Obviously the Major and the Puppet Master kind of become one entity, and it's kind of a new beginning for everything.
Yeah.
So,
which is symbolizing the fact that it's a child's chassis.
Exactly.
Because admittedly, it makes sense you wouldn't put a child brain in an adult body. That would probably not be good for that brain's development. Yeah, but
the symbolism goes there. It's a new beginning. It's a new life. It's a new journey.
And I can appreciate that. It's just, It's not I just wish we got more in a certain way. And believe me, I do think that's a good sign of a good movie. It's like it leaves you wanting more. That means that's a good excuse to watch it again to see if you can find more that you missed the first time.
Yeah.
It does ride that line between leaving you hungry and leaving you starving, though.
Yeah.
And it's almost you're uncomfortable. It's not that you want more; it's you need more. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where a lot of your rub comes with it, Drew. It does kind of leave you hanging.
Yeah, and admittedly, I didn't get a chance to watch this a second time through, which I really want to do now before this review, because I still get the feeling, even though I was paying attention, that I missed stuff. Because you can't catch everything the first time through. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even with everything y'all have talked about, I can tell I've missed stuff. So
there's my ranty scene that'll probably wind up in the bloopers. So about all the little symbolism and foreshadowing nods that happen in this movie that are just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's not one of those movies that you can watch one time and get every single nuance. Because, like you said, you watch it every time you watch it, there's something new, or it's like, oh, okay, I understand even more depth, or where how far the rabbit hole this goes, and it's a phenomenal film.
Yeah,
phenomenal.
It is phenomenal. I'll give you that. So that brings us to the end of the review, I think, unless y'all have anything else y'all want to bring up.
Don't get me started. I could go. But no. But yeah,
Brian will chase that ghost for infinity and beyond.
Yes. But yeah, no. I think we tackled it really well. But seriously, go watch it, folks. It's
yeah.
You can disagree with every single idea any of us have said about it and still enjoy this.
I agree with that.
Yeah, come to your own conclusions with this film, and let us know down in the comment section down below on Facebook or whatever social media platform you want, and just let us know what you thought of this film.
Exactly. So Brian, what would you actually give this movie as a rating?
If
you had to boil it down to a number.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Drew.
If you have to boil it down to a number, what would you boil it down to?
Oh. Orange. No.
Decisions.
No. Ghost in the Shell 1 to 10, and I'm gonna have to go with a solid 9.
Okay.
Pretty high praise, but honestly, I've been a fan of this movie for more years. That having discovered this movie and fallen in love with it at somewhere between 13 and 15, I've been alive and a fan of this movie longer than I was alive and not a fan of this movie at this point. And it still hasn't gotten old. You guys inviting me on caused me to rewatch 2 different versions of it. And now I rebought a new version of it, and I'm probably going to get bored on the holiday weekend and watch it again.
All right, Jacob, what do you rate this movie?
Oh, well, after that, good night. Because originally I had it at a 8.5. An 8.5. I'm gonna go with Brian. It's a solid 9. It's an amazing technical achievement for a film. It goes so deep into philosophy, goes so deep into the meaning of life and what life means, and it's so utterly complex. One of those films that every time you watch it, because there's some films you watch and it's like, okay, I get the gist. I could probably watch it again and understand maybe a little bit more. Right. But this movie, every time you watch it, there's something more. There's another angle to attack. and it's a fantastic film that needs to be loved and cherished by those who are going to go and watch it. Because I know this is a movie not for everybody. And yeah, definitely give it a 9. Drew?
I'm going to give this an 8.5.
All right.
And a lot of that, I will grant you, comes from having only gotten one viewing in this, and I still have many questions that I'm fairly certain might get answered with a rewatch. So, and I'm sure the more I rewatch this, the more I'm going to like it, and it will probably eventually end up at a 9. But right now, I'm going to give it an 8.5. It's enjoyable. I wouldn't call it a fun movie, but it is an exciting movie, and it's got a good mystery, even if I don't like how the mystery ends. But that's beside the point. But yeah, if you enjoy science fiction that asks the tough questions and asks philosophical questions, definitely give this a watch. It's a good movie.
All right. Well, there again, thank you, Brian, for coming and joining us.
Well, we still got a roll for our next movie.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Never mind. Yes. Cut that.
Yeah. So, sitting on our dice at number 1, well, Monsters vs. Aliens has been sitting on the list for a while now. This is its 7th episode, so it has mutated to fill both spots 1 and 5. Sitting at number 2, we've got The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. Number 3, Dragon Ball Z: The Dead Zone. Number 4, Toy Story. And on number 6, The Adventures of Tintin. Before I roll this, Brian, do you have any thoughts on any of those movies?
I'm rooting for The Adventures of Tintin, so I'll finally have an excuse to watch it.
Yes!
All right. I also want to see how big Monsters vs. Aliens can get.
That's understandable.
I want to see you guys roll that die and somehow it land on an edge or fall off the table, and it's still not the movie picked.
Well, it is what it is. So it is my roll this week. So I need something to roll this on. Hang on.
Come here, anime cover.
Yes. All right. So roll this thing. Okay, I rolled a 2. So next week we're watching The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh.
Okay, that's going to be cool.
Now I have a few days head start.
Exactly. So join us for that next time. Come, Jacob. We must prepare for next week.
Prepare for what, Drew?
The same thing we do every week, Jacob. Record a podcast.
Oh, boy. Thanks again, Brian, for coming in and joining us for this amazing episode of the Cellcast. Where can our audience find you?
Okay, well, thank you. First and foremost, thank you guys for having me on. This has really been a treat. I guess the easiest way to find me, even though the website looks horrible right now, would be brianraif.com, or of course all those social media platforms you're already using. Facebook.com/BrianRaif, at Brian Raif on Twitter, and Brian Raif Writer on Instagram. But if you just search for Brian Raif, it'll pull me up. Or you can always just hop onto Amazon and Google my name or the name William Codex for the novel. William Codex, Knight of the Silver Sword. First book, still out now, available in ebook or print. And the second book, I was really hoping to have a summer release date, but it's looking more like fall, winter 2020. But it's coming very soon, so please keep an eye out for it.
All right.
Awesome.
I got 2 questions for you. One, will there be an audiobook of William Codex and the first one?
There will eventually be an audiobook. I'm trying to track down readers right now. Because as much as I've heard a couple of people say I should just read it, I don't think my voice is William Codex's, and it's all first-person narrative. That being said, I've got a couple of promising options. However, if anyone wants to track down Nick Podell on Twitter and just start planting the seed in his head, if you want to do the audio for this book, I mean, by all means, go ahead, please.
Okay, so you said you are working on a second book to the William Codex stories. Can you give us a little inkling, like what's going on? Because like you said, this could possibly be coming out late 2020. So
Yeah.
could you give our audience a little tidbit of
Sure.
what's coming up?
Sure thing. In the and to do that, just real quick, because I know I'm not a household name or anything. In the first book, you meet William Codex, who's an FBI agent who isn't a monster hunter. He's a monster law enforcement officer. He polices and protects the supernatural world, both protects us from it and protects it from us. And in the first book, you kind of really get a tour of his world, and trying not to spoil too much here, but everything goes William's way in the first book for the most part. In the second book, titled William Codex Uncertain Origins, you really get to see things turn upside down, and you really get a feeling for how big the world is and how scary a world full of monsters and mayhem can be for a guy who really has his wits and his trusty Colt 45.
Ah, very cool. So can you mention again what podcast you're a part of?
Yes, the Dustrous podcast. We play a highly modified version of the Pathfinder tabletop RPG for your laughter and entertainment. Fair warning, they cut me off of the rating chain on that one. So be advised, don't go in faint of heart. But if you're willing to listen to a dirty joke or two, Dustrous a riot.
All right. All right, good deal. Well, there again, thank you so much for joining us. And yeah,
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, if you're willing or able, be like, we'd love to have you on another time.
Sure thing. Anything that tackles Ghost in the Shell type topics, or and of course, I guess anything that tackles the supernatural or whatnot. I get deep into all that folklore as a result of the book. So,
all right, excellent.
So where can they find you, Jacob?
They can find me on Facebook at Jacob B. Heron and Jacob's Daily Art Corner, my personal art Facebook page. On Twitter at Jacob B. Heron, on Instagram at Jacob B. Heron, and on Letterboxd at Jacob Heron. Where can they find you, Drew?
You can find me on Facebook at Drew Dodgen. You can also find my Facebook page at Drew's Photo Bin, where I upload my photography. You can also follow me on Letterboxd at GGeorge759 and Twitter at GGeorge759. Where can they find us, Jacob?
You can also visit our website, thecellcast.podbean.com, where you will find every episode we released and links to listen to it on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Stitcher. Our RSS feed, if we aren't in your favorite podcast app directory, please share, review, and subscribe to us there, and share us with your friends.
You will also find a link to our Facebook group, the Double Feature Podcast Community, where we talk about both animated and live-action movies. We share this with our other podcasts, which we do with Jacob's brother Jim, at the Movie of the Week podcast, where we talk about live-action movies. You can also email us at thecellcastpodcast@gmail.com. Also, please like our page on Facebook. We try to post about upcoming movies. If you comment on that movie's post before we record, we'll read your comments in the episode. And remember, every time we say The Cellcast, that is with a single L.